We call the meeting to order. This is a regularly scheduled Greer City Council meeting called and convened this evening, August 24th, 2021. Having called the meeting to order, I'd like to ask if you would to please stand with me as I lead us in an invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we come before you humbly this evening and thanking you for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon us that has brought us to this point this evening. We thank you, Lord, for the calling that you have placed upon our lives as elected officials and for the opportunity to serve this community. We thank you for this staff and all that they do, for the dedication that our different departments have and improving the quality of life in this city and providing the essential services that we have grown used to. We ask your protection over them as they are out and about tonight and today, and pray that you will be with them as well too. As we go into this meeting tonight, I ask that you would give us insight and understanding, that you would give us the ability to discern, and that you would be with us in our decisions, that they may be appropriate and just. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
We set aside time at the beginning of each meeting for public forum. Public forum is an opportunity for citizens to speak to items that are on the agenda. Having said that, we determined by the number of people that are here to speak at least some guidelines for that. Tonight we have a number of folks that would like to speak, so I'm going to ask you to indulge us and the crowd of folks that are here tonight. I would ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes, if you will. I will give you an opportunity to wrap those comments up if we start to exceed that time frame, but ask that you be mindful of others that are here and would like to speak, and also to the decorum of this gathering this evening. So with that, I will call you to the podium. If you will proceed to the podium after I call your name. If you would state your name and address as a matter of record, I would appreciate it, and the floor will be yours. And so with that, we will start with Kevin Cheek. You are our first speaker this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. I wanted to talk just for a second, or a few minutes if I could, about mine and I hope, also my wife's views as far as the property that's next to us. We're at 302 West Arlington Avenue, and my wife Terry is with me tonight also. We were concerned when our neighbor Meredith sold the property because, as anything, you worry about who's going to be next to you, what kind of people are going to be coming to live next to you, what it's going to look like. That was absolutely a concern. And when we first heard the plans, third hand, that supposedly the builder had, we were, very concerned, super concerned. I would say that Dan reached out to us, the builder reached out to us and actually came to our home, sat down with us, on the sofa, and he went over his plans in detail with us, line by line, for probably an hour, I guess. And it's my understanding that he offered to go do the same thing for everybody in the neighborhood if they wanted to talk to him about it. Long story short, the plans that he showed us is a vast improvement to the home that's there now. They're talking about doing a significant improvement to the existing structure that's there, which I think would be great for the neighborhood. I mean, Mr. Bright's not there now, and it's not pink anymore, and looks like the improvements that he'd be doing to it would really, really accent the neighborhood. And also, too, the plans for the homes, specifically that would be allowed on the property, only those homes or only those designs that he showed us were, I mean, I'll be honest with you, they're exemplary, and I'd love to live in a house like that. So having said that, I'm not going to go the 5 minutes. I just want the council to know that I'd much rather have someone living next to me or a project next to me that I knew about up front, that I knew about what it was going to look like and what kind of people would be coming next door to me. And I can say, I'm not speaking for my wife, but I can say that I would wholeheartedly welcome that project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Brian Martin.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. My name is Brian Martin. I live at 116 West Church Street, approximately 150, 200 feet up the street from the property on Miller. I'm here to speak to you today about Ordinance 34-2021. There are two reasons that I oppose this, and I certainly, as a lawyer, could spend a lot of time talking because that's what I enjoy doing. The first reason that I would oppose making any changes is that this property is dead smack in the middle of a historic district that was recommended that we put on the National Register back from a historical study that the city sponsored back in 2017. This part of that survey indicated that the Davenport Arlington Mountain View District contained over 193 homes, all pre-70, most of them pre-1940, our time period being 1900 and 1940 to develop those. And part of the character of that neighborhood was the varying lot sizes that were developed during that time. This property is one of the larger pieces of those, which is part of the charm and the historic atmosphere of that. But as I said to the Planning Commission, our job as residents of this city now is keepers of the history for our children. And I believe that this community and the historic district in Greer is something that we need to preserve. Brings me to the second point, and the reason that I am most opposed to this is the use of the DRD, Design Review District, as a tool to accomplish this task. The entire area of the historic district is, with the exception of, I think, 2 multifamily areas and parks, is zoned R12. That zoning went into place after 85 to 95% of those homes were constructed in 1977 or 78. The historic community doesn't have restricted covenants because covenants didn't exist in that time. People weren't developing it. And so the only protection that the homeowners have in this area is the zoning that is in place. We have seen, as most of you know, I sat on the Planning Commission for 14 years, and over that period of 14 years, I was on the Planning Commission when design review districts were introduced. And we have seen the progression of the use and abuse of the design review district by developers seeking to maximize their profit on land. I am adamantly concerned that this is a major tipping point that will open a door that we will not be able to close. If you approve the use of a DRD to avoid the restrictions of the R12 zoning in this case, then you open the door for a DRD to be used for individual spot areas in any zoning category. That defeats the entire purpose of R 7.5, 10, 12, 15, 20. There's no point in having any other zoning classifications. If all a developer wants to do, if their design or decision doesn't fit in that, is to ask for a DRD, and that is what is happening. Planning Commission agenda on Monday night had 11 items on their agenda last Monday. 8 of those 11 were DRD requests. 8. There are 2 rezoning requests, and those 2 are being discussed for you tonight, going to C1 in those situations. But if we use DRD in this way, there's no reason we would have that. We would simply ask for a DRD and just tell the city what we want to do. And the question is, are you going to allow it? If you open this door, you will allow developers to go out and seek residential lots in communities that may or may not be protected by covenants to put townhomes. And you might think that that's a little extreme, but one of the items on the agenda last Monday night was a proposal that was withdrawn by staff after discovering that there was no covenants. But I want you guys to see this.
30 seconds, Mr. Martin.
Pass that across. This is a proposal for a DRD in a R20 subdivision on Chick Springs Road that's been there since 1960 to use the available vacant residential lots to put 8 townhomes on each of those lots. There's empty lots in Burgess Hills. If there are empty lots in other neighborhoods, this is the method. This is what developers are going to use to do this. And I would ask you to not approve this use of DRD in that method and to have further discussions on the appropriate use of DRD from this point forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Keith Smith.
My name is Keith Smith, and I live at 206 West Church Street. And I'm here to talk to you in opposition of the zoning of the property on the corner of Miller Street and West Arlington. You refer to it as 34-2021. In your package, you probably have some information about lot sizes and how many small lots exist in the community that are less than R12. These lots existed in our community prior to 1978. There are homes existing today on these smaller lots. Those homes existed prior to 1978. They were grandfathered in at the time of the zoning of R12, with the exception of one lot. That lot was carved out without a public hearing and without going through the approval process that is required by this council. A city employee took it upon themselves to make this approval. And you may see some pretty pictures of some pretty houses. The gentleman talked about those. But even under the proposed request, this city does not require the homes to match these pictures. The builder only has to get approval of a final plat, design and materials that meet building standards. And even this is a moving target at this time. You may hear that city zoning is antiquated. And as soon as I get to page 2, we'll tell you why. But R12 type zoning is used all over South Carolina and the nation. I ask again that you deny the change in the zoning in our historical community. My wife and I grew up in Greer, but we moved into this historical community post 1978. Most all the residents in our community moved in post 1978. We moved to the community because we loved the eclectic charm of the historical community, and we do not wish to see it changed. We especially like the mid-century house and property on the corner of Miller and West Arlington. This property lies in the center of our historical community. You may call it the hub. You may have even heard and even think that a person should have the right to do whatever they want to on their property. I say they are required to follow the existing rules in their community, as we all are. Rule 12 is a rule set by this body. The rest of our community, our historical community, have obeyed the rule of R12. They are rules, other rules. Cut your grass, repair your property, keep it in safe condition. Do not have a vehicle sitting in your front yard on cement blocks. These are rules set by you, and you see that people follow them. I know, I hear those cases. I like horses, elephants, and some donkeys. But there's rules against me having these animals at my home, even though I have open grazing land in my backyard, right through the gate at my fence. Big open property there. When this property was recently purchased, the property on Miller in West Arlington, it was purchased under the rule and the zoning of R12. That is the rule.
30 seconds, Mr.
I ask that you deny any change of zoning in our historical community. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bob Couch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, board members. My name is Bob Couch. Address is 107 North Miller Street. I have lived at this address for 40-plus years. And I'd just like to come up here. I'm talking on behalf of Stagberg Builders. I've reviewed the plans extensively with Mr. Stagberg. I've walked the property. I've looked at it. And the houses he is proposing to build fit the lot, in my opinion, the size of the lots he has proposed. So, and just to make a comment, we do live in a historical district. However, all the houses there are not historic. And there was a house built on North Miller Street they just recently moved in, and that house is on 9,000 square feet. So I'm here to ask you to be open-minded and consider the plans of Mr. Stagberg and ask you to approve these. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Donna Cotter.
Hi, I'm Donna Cotter. I live at 402 West Arlington, and thank you for the opportunity, Council, to speak to you. My husband and I bought a house that was in need of lots of repair 4 or 5 years ago. When we bought the house, we completely transformed it, and it's our understanding it was built in like 1939. We're not really sure. But I can tell you we have taken that house from the inside and out and put our heart and soul into it. And the reason we have is because of this neighborhood and because of where we live. And it would be such a shame, in my opinion, for us to take the wonderful plan that you have for the R12 and change it at this point in time. There would be, I think it would open a Pandora's box. I think we could start seeing much more of this trend happening in our neighborhood, and I oppose it very, very strongly. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Steve Lanford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, staff. I am Steve Lanford, and I live at 111 West Church Street. When I moved into my home 11 years ago, there were squirrels in the attics and raccoons in the downstairs. But there was also knob and tube wiring. There was also lath and plaster. There were also heart pine floors, been there 100 years. Well, now 100 years, because the house is 102 years old. When I moved in, as Donna said, I went through that house, had all the wiring changed, had the plumbing done, rewiring, re-roofed, everything that you can possibly do to a home, I think. And as I sat on my front porch, people walked by. And I got to give kudos to the gentleman trying to make this happen, because to be turned down twice by a planning commission, then come before you guys, still with another DRD request, I applaud him for his efforts. But I can tell you, the people that walk by my home strike up a conversation with me. What are you doing in your yard? Tell me what you're doing. We love this neighborhood. Please don't let them do, that's what they'll tell me. They say, please don't let anyone in this neighborhood do what they've done in Greenville. And I said, Greenville, you from, they said, yeah, we park at the bank next door to my house, and we walk this neighborhood because of the ambiance of this place. We love the ambiance of what you've done in Greer. Your council and the mayor should be commended for keeping it as it is and not letting the historic district become filled with condos, become filled with apartment complexes side by side where you could put a 2x8 and walk between the different houses. Said, please keep this as you have it. I served on the planning commission, and I've told this before. The whole thing that of a community was the people in the community. It's not necessarily the homes, it's the people there. And the people here have, by the looks of the parking lot, and those of us here, we've opposed this and we've said, if you're going to make it another Greenville, then that's okay. But the people say, we have nothing like this in Lyman. We don't have it in Duncan. We don't have this in Welford. We don't have this in Spartanburg. We don't have this in Greenville. But you've got it here. You've got it here because you've kept it as a historic district, and people have spent money. People have done all they can do to make their yards look better, to make their homes look better. And I think that's known. I don't think that's something I have to educate anyone about. I think you see it, and I think it's noticed. But I want you to know that other people from other towns walk by in front of our homes, walk their dogs, come out and comment on what a great little town we have. And folks, I'm glad to be here, and as I said, I hope that you will consider not changing and going along with the Planning Commission's opposition to it 2 different times and vote against this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kay Lamberston? Mr. Lamberston?
Thank you. I'm Cayman Lambertson. I own a house at 110 Green Street that my daughter lives in. We moved here 2 years ago from New Orleans. So our lot size there was 30 by 90, which is common there. But we drove around. My wife's from Seattle. We drove around the area. My other daughter lives in Taylor. And she said, go look at Greer, because we didn't know where to live. And that when we found this neighborhood, we just kept coming back and looking at it, and noticed the work being done on Trade Street, and started paying attention to the town. Well, when we lived in that house, our neighbor, both neighbors are in their 80s, told us a lot about the neighborhood, and I'm kind of on behalf of her, Betty Hancock, and Steve Gillespie is another neighbor who has a big lot next to his house. And I asked him the other day I told him what was happening here, and he said, well, no, he says, we kept that lot so the kids would have a place to play. So he's been around here a while, was a teacher, and that's the spirit of the neighborhood. That's what drives you guys to fix up Trade Street, all right? That neighborhood and Trade Street go together, okay? So when you start talking about high-density housing like in Greenville, that Seattle's done that. We were in an older neighborhood there, and they've kind of overdone it, thanks to some employers that moved in that liked that idea. So you've got to be careful, and this is a good place to draw a line and be careful with that high-density idea. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With that, council, we conclude our public forum this evening. Council, contained in your packet this evening are the minutes from our August 10th meeting. I'll entertain a motion that they be received.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any items of note for the clerk? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Miss Albert? Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, we have a special recognition this evening, which we do from time to time. I'd like to invite the ladies, I believe, from the DAR possibly, that are here with us this evening. Welcome. It has been my pleasure to do this for as many years as I can remember, and we have been doing this for a long time. And we typically have a few more folks that join us for this, but I am sure that you will get it into the right hands and let them know that we have officially done a proclamation honoring Constitution Week. And this proclamation states, whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law, and whereas September the 17th, 2021 marks the 234th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States by America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate it. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States designating September the 17th through 23rd as Constitutional Week, therefore the City of Greer does hereby proclaim the week of September the 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution had in 1778 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through the guardians of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. With that, I'd like to present this to you, and if you would like.
Thank you. We usually have a sign in front of the museum to remind you about this, and we usually ring bells at 4 o'clock on the 17th. For Constitution Week. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all for being with us this evening. Council, your packet contains information from the various different departments. It is departmental reports from July. As we typically have an overview of our financial situation, we didn't have anybody available to do that this evening. You will find that activity on the dashboard. You can reference that. Then I'm sure Mr. Merriman or somebody else with the financial department will be glad to answer any questions that you've got in that regard. Speaking of Mr. Merriman, our administrator's report is next. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Briefly, a couple things I want to run through. First of all, a reminder, at the last council meeting, you had a presentation from Meridian, not only introducing themselves as our new contractual municipal solid waste provider, but also to notify you of route changes. Those route changes will go into effect next week. I think everybody that is affected by that, which is most of the routes, have been notified of the changes and hopefully are making their preparations at home to get the garbage out at the right time. If they need any further information or need anything else, they can contact us and we will make sure they know what day their garbage is to be picked up. Second thing is just an update. Kids Planet is scheduled to be closed next week. From the 30th to the 1st, we have to install some irrigation, so there'll be some open trenching. So for the public safety, we'll be closing it those days. As part of our ongoing investment at Turner and Little Turner, we are constructing restroom facilities out there. So that neighborhood is now seeing some vertical construction out there at Turner. So we're excited about the ongoing improvements out there. There is, the police department annually does a softball tournament, and this softball tournament is this weekend for the Upstate Fallen Officers Memorial. This is a fundraiser that has been very successful for that fund, and our police department has been dedicated to that for a number of years. So that event will be at Century Park this weekend. And let's see, I think the last thing I just want to remind you of is that your budget books are available and they are in your mailboxes today. So if you want to grab those and commit it to memory like I know you do every year, they're there. With that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
It only feels like it's been 5 years. It's just Indeed, we thank you for your service. It has been a great transition, and you're doing a wonderful job, and we appreciate all that you do for us. Thank you, sir. Council will move to appointments of boards and commissions. The Board of Zoning Appeals has a term that has expired, Ms. Glendora Massey's term. Mr. Griffin, any news in that regard?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to place in nomination Mr. Nielsen, who's at 111 Spring Street. He has been told me he was glad to serve on that board, and I'm glad that I got somebody to serve. So I'd like to nominate him.
Board of Zoning Appeals, we have a nomination for Mr. Nielsen. We'll ask that you confirm that in time with the application process that needs to be done in that regard, but it comes from Mr. Griffin. I'll entertain a motion for a second.
Second.
Floor is open. Any questions or discussions of Mr. Griffin and his nomination? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, let's move to items of old business. The second and final reading of ordinance number 38-2021 is before us this evening. It's an ordinance to provide for the annexation of properties owned by Cold Brew Holdings LLC located at 108 East Avenue and East Avenue by 100% petition, and to establish a zoning classification of DRD for said properties. Ms. Cotty joins us this evening. Any new or additional information, Ms. Cotty, in regards to ordinance number 38-2021?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The only update is that Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on August 16th and recommend approval of the zoning.
Second and final reading of ordinance number 38-2021 comes with recommendation from Planning Commission. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion. Comments?
I just wanted to ask a question about the road there, CAZ, I guess that's CAZ or something like that. There's a couple of units in there. Are they gonna be part of the project? I mean, is that gonna be in that same, where the townhouses are? I believe they're all owned by the same party.
I'm not sure which properties you're speaking of. So the existing attached homes that are at the beginning of the street?
And, I believe that, the party Cold Brew must have purchased that as part of the property in April of this year or something. If I'm not mistaken. And I was thinking that maybe they own, it's like a group of, one-story units, multiple housing there.
Yeah, any homes, if it was bought, is the applicant here? Do you want to address that? Is that okay, Mayor?
Yes.
To have the applicant?
I'm just trying to see if that fits in.
Sir, if you'll come to the podium, if you'll state your name and address and company as a matter of record, I'd appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Wes Bolin. I'm the civil engineer for the project. Work for Site Design at 225 Rocky Creek Road, Greenville. To answer your question, the development, the existing properties on Kaz Lane, which is to the adjacent of our property on the east side, are not part of this development or will not be connected to it.
Okay. Does Cold Brewery, do they own those units there?
I can't speak 100% of that, but I think they may have some interest in it.
The reason I was asking, they do look like I don't know if they're working on them or they look like they're in need of being worked on or something, cleaned up around the area. So I don't know if that's what I wanted to know, if they were going to be brought in with this group of townhomes, or if it's on separate property, or if they will be maintained or brought down, or what?
They are separate. One thing is the property that we are annexing in, they're both Spartanburg County, but ours will be annexed in as part of that. But they will not be part of the same development.
Okay, so they're not in part of the same,
No, ma'am.
not included in that same. I really couldn't tell from the little sketch. I kept looking at it to see if it was, so. Now, these are gonna be rented, is that correct? Not sold? Was that the plan?
Yes, ma'am. For the foreseeable future, they will be rented. However, they will be set up to be sold if they decide to do individually, if they decide to do so at some point in the future.
So as the
Like-
landlord and Cold Brewery and the landlord and all, then they will maintain and keep them up with the grass and all, since it is.
Correct. Like they'll all have separate sanitary sewer connections and water meters, so it will be possible to subdivide it if they decided to.
Yeah, the only thing, I know it was brought up at the last meeting when it came first reading, Mr. Dumas had mentioned about the narrow road and the hard to cut through there. The one big tree sitting right there at East and 11th, I wouldn't want any trees cut down, but that tree is big and it takes up a good amount of road, it seems like. So I didn't know if there was any plans for any change in the road or anything at this time.
East Avenue, no ma'am, we're not planning on any changes for that. Our project doesn't meet any requirements for traffic impact studies. It only generates, say, 19 peak hour trips. So I don't anticipate anything to be done on our end for East Avenue. Thank you.
Before you leave, others in that regard? Thank you, sir. Comments?
Scotty, what is the current zoning on that property?
It is unzoned.
It's unzoned. It's Spartanburg County.
Did this have any type of attachment or connection with the mill and the properties that were down there?
I'm not certain.
Don't know. Because I know all that was in that kind of donut hole at one point. And, they had the parking lot that was across the street, and this is really close to it. What is the zoning that's around these properties on Anita Street, Irving Street, 11th Street? What's
So generally, it's either R12 for City of Greer or unzoned Spartanburg County, and that includes the single family, and there's a quadplex that's also occupied. To the south, there's single family R12 as well as some R1 multifamily, and that includes duplexes and a sixplex. And then to the west is also single family residential R12, and that's unzoned Spartanburg County as well. So.
Others? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
yes?
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Second and final reading of ordinance number 39-2021. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by PRHC LLC located on East Avenue by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of DRD for said property. Any new or additional information in that regard, Ms. Cotty?
Just the same, that the planning commission held the public hearing and recommended approval of the zoning.
Comes with the approval of the planning commission. I'll entertain a motion to receive. And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion.
Did anybody speak in opposition?
I don't believe so. Not for this one.
Others? Comments? Questions? Discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, let's move to items of new business, the first of which is the purchase of holiday pole decorations for the city of Greer. Parks and Recreation Department is requesting city approval to allow for the single source purchase of custom-made holiday pole decorations from Downtown Decorations Incorporated.
Much
Ms.
lighter,
Cunningham joins us for that conversation.
much lighter topic, so.
I think that's why my wife's here, actually.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. The City of Greer Parks and Recreation Department budgeted in the Capital Equipment Fund for replacement of 84 holiday pole decorations in fiscal year 2021-22. And in efforts to find an updated and unique pole decoration for the City of Greer, a committee was formed to search local businesses, internet sites, and catalogs. These pole decorations are custom-made, they're one of a kind, and the decorations that we are proposing to purchase is proprietary to one manufacturer, which is Downtown Decorations Incorporated, and they are made in the United States. There is an attachment included on the agenda that contains a letter supporting Downtown Decorations Incorporated as a sole source provider of this particular decoration. To ensure receipt of these decorations in time for the holiday season, we are requesting to set aside the standard procurement policy as it relates to formal advertisement. A request for proposal may be advertised, however, we do not believe there will be sufficient time to have these pole decorations manufactured for this holiday season. The quoted price of $53,806 exceeds the purchase amount threshold that requires City Council's approval, and it is less than the approved budgeted amount for this purchase, which was $84,000. That's a savings of a little over $30,000. Staff is requesting City Council's approval to set aside the standard procurement policy as it relates to formal advertisement to purchase the proposed custom-made holiday pole decorations from Downtown Decorations Incorporated, a sole source provider. Thank you for your consideration, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Council, for the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion.
This is for 84 of them.
Actually, we're going to purchase 90. We need 84, but we would certainly like to have some extra just in case. And we are still well under budget, which we are very happy about that.
Ms. Cunningham, what is the projected lifespan of these decorations?
These are LED bulbs. Of course, we prefer individual bulbs versus rope lights and other options. The bulbs themselves are very long-term life, much more so than the older bulbs, which are pretty much going away. But I think the life expectancy of these would be 12 to 15 years. We actually got, I think, a little more than 20 years from the ones that we have now, and they're, I think, in need of replacement. They've kind of UV'd out. So these are a little bit different, and I think they'll be beautiful.
This is the major decoration on the street.
Yes, these are the telephone pole decorations. Now, we'll still have the garland wraps and the bows and the swags on Trade Street. So this is replacing the stockings and the trees and the poinsettias.
Others?
Are they still going up in November?
Yes, we have to start in November, because there's so many, there's 84 of those, but there's, now with the addition of all the extra acorn poles, we have 200 plus garland wraps and bows and all the others to put up, so it's quite time consuming.
And we also have the deal where Duke Power's on one side of the road and CPW, and so there's always a question about why the lights are on one side and not on the other. Is that still
That's still in place.
going on? Okay.
Yes, CPW, of course, is very cooperative and supportive, and the other is not. Nice way to put it.
I like the other.
Questions of Ms. Cunningham? Other discussion, comments? Comes with a recommendation from staff. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Council, second item before us in new business this evening is ordinance number 34-2021. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of properties owned by Stageburg Builders Incorporated, located at 301 North Miller Street and 300 West Arlington Avenue, from R12 Residential Single Family District to DRD Design Review. Action is required. Ms. Cotty, information in regards to ordinance number 34-2021.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Again, this is a rezoning request. The two properties in question are currently zoned R12. Here's an aerial of the site. Again, you'll see they're located at the corner of Arlington and Miller Street. This is a current zoning map of the property. The tannish color that you'll see is R12. This is a comprehensive plan map, and the pink that you'll see is C1, which is our downtown, and then the tan color is traditional neighborhood. This is a current street view of the site with one existing house and one kind of shed garage. This is the proposed site plan that goes along with the DRD. As you all know, DRD, Design Review District, is a flexible zoning district where we adopt a site plan and statement of intent as part of the ordinance that lays out the regulations that the project has to follow. So this particular project is proposing to change 2 lots into 4, and you can see those kind of proposed layouts with the footprints and the setbacks for each of those lots. I included one on the left, which is the aerial of the property underneath, so it might be a little bit give you some context, and then the one on the right is a little bit cleaner so you can read, kind of see the setbacks that are going to be allowed. In terms of the statement of intent, again, this is to allow up to 4 single-family detached lots. The existing house would remain on one of the lots. The density proposed is 4.1 units per acre. The setback does range from 30 to 45 feet along the front. The statement of intent does lay out that it would, the houses would align with the adjacent houses, so that does range. It does maintain a 15-foot side and rear setback. In terms of building materials, it does, this is also kind of style. It does say that the homes that would be built would be craftsman or cottage style homes. No vinyl would be allowed. The foundations would have accented brick or stone, and then elevations would be attached, again, to the ordinance. And those elevations in question are up on your screen now. Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on August 16th, and they recommended denial. Staff recommends approval. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Council, for the purpose of discussion, this is the first reading of ordinance number 34-2021. Entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Floor is now open for discussion. By show of hand, is the owner of the property or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Mr. Sageberg, I understand you have additional information that you'd like to share with council. Is that correct? Yes, sir. We'll allow you 10 minutes to do that, please, sir.
Again, my name's Dan Staggerberg. I live at 105 North Miller Street, and thank you again for the opportunity to share this project. I've had some headwinds, obviously, on this project, but the reason I'm still here is I firmly believe in this project. I live in the neighborhood, and I believe this plan fits the neighborhood, and I know there's some zoning history, but I think this presentation, I'll zip through it real quick. It addresses a lot of those issues. So first off, there's a lot of discussion about the history of the neighborhood. And I believe that more than anything, that's what drew me to this community. And if you look at the elevations, let me advance this here. So this first slide, it just talks really about the style of the homes that I'm going to build. And also for the record, these specific houses are the specific houses that I will build. I had a surveyor lay them, the footprints, the dimensions, everything is right on the site plan. So I am not changing from these elevations. This will be specifically what you see. So this first house, this is a corner lot. I showed two elevations, so you could, because it is on the corner, so that you could see it from the front and also from the side as you wrap around the corner of Arlington West and North Miller. All the homes will be the Craftsman style, cottage homes, hardboard siding, shakes, stone accents for the foundation, stone and brick. Wraparound porches on all the homes. There'll be metal roof on the porches, just like a lot of the historic homes that we have here. Wood floors, wood ceilings, just like a lot of the historical homes. No vinyl anywhere on the homes. Landscaping is another thing I put in my letter of intent. I believe, as a builder and the houses need to be beautiful, but also your landscaping as well. So I have a heavy layer of landscaping, irrigated yards, sodded, architectural lighting on the homes to accent the specific landscape plan of each home and accent the home as well. This just shows the two elevations of the houses that are not on the corners, which one would be North Miller and one would be on West Arlington. This is the existing house, and again, part of the historical presence of this neighborhood. I don't want to tear anything down. I've sort of designed this plan around this house. This house is sort of right in the center of the entire property. So when we look at the site plan, you'll see how I've sort of strategically placed these houses and line them up well beyond what the setbacks and the front setbacks require, so that they would all sort of line up with each other. So when it's all done, this house and these other homes that are built in a historical context will blend very nicely. And this house here, we're just going to do some needed updates, but not change the character of the house. There's a flat porch that we want to turn into a slope, so it's not a potential for future leaks. Put a dormer up there and just clean up the outside really nice. So we're going to do some inside stuff for the owner as well. So the site plan here, one thing I do want to show you that we have amended on this site plan. Oops, I got my pointer here. So this corner right here, this garage right now is forward, but we're going to offset it to the back of the house. So it'll actually be a little over 30 feet from the sideline requirement here. And the purpose there is, again, to line it up with Kevin's house right here, and then with the new house, they all align. Coming across the front of all the homes, we've got 37, 37, and 45. And we staged this back a little bit just to meet up with Mike's house over here, so it'll be a nice flow as far as the front yards going across. And like I said earlier, those footprints are the exact footprints, the dimensions. I had a surveyor. I didn't draw this myself. A registered surveyor drew these and placed them on the lot. And here, this just shows a little bit of sort of the context of what our neighborhood is. And I understand there's a lot of history in the zoning. But when I drive the streets and I look for the character of the neighborhood, you see it when you look at it. Whether it's R12, DRD or whatever it may be, or some of these, obviously, my next slide is going to show that, 40% of all these lots in here, in this area, just this 4-block area, I'm not trying to reach out in other areas, I want to focus right what we have in this area. 40% of those lots are less than 12,000, 20% are less than 10,000. One other thing just to point out, specifically right on Arlington there, if you look at all the houses right next to it on Arlington, the average lot width there is 68 feet. We're going to be 70, 88, 70, and 63. So again, the reason I say that is just when you drive the street, it feels like it fits. Also, one other thing just to note here, whoops, grabbed the wrong one. And again, just talking about fit into the neighborhood. We've got 2 lots right here. They're directly across the street. This one here is an 8,000 square foot lot. That's a 6,000 square foot lot. These 2 here are less than 12,000 square foot. Now again, I'm not saying that to say anything wrong with those. I like those, and there's many other examples. You just come straight up the street here on this corner. This is one of the prettiest houses in the neighborhood, and it's under 10,000 square feet. It's got a beautiful wraparound porch, same thing that I'm going to do down here on these lots here. So again, it's not to debate the zoning. It's about fit, in my opinion. Let the architecture fit, let the lot spacing fit, let it feel like it belongs in this neighborhood. And again, back to the feel of the neighborhood. This slide, all this does is it just states the fact of really what the lots are in this 4-block area, what the sizes are, and you can see. And this is data from Greer zoning and planning staff. This is not my data. 40% of all these lots are under 12,000, 20% are under 10,000. I've talked about the other items there. This slide here, I think, shows maybe a little better from an aerial view. You can look at the spacing between my houses, look at the spacing between the existing houses. And I think if you look at that, look at all the spaces that are around, I pushed all these back. Well beneath. Right here we've got 15 feet. Here we've got 10 to 15 feet. Mine are all well back, 30 to 45. And again, in an effort to make it feel like it fits.
2 minutes, Mr. Stewart.
Okay. So in wrapping up here, so one thing I do want to speak about is I've got which I'm sure you have, is the staff report to the Planning Commission and their summary. And one thing that I've noticed here in particular, that any town that's successful has a comprehensive plan. And Greer obviously does. You guys are doing a great job in following that plan. And then just in staff summary from the last zoning commission, just their summary paragraph, and I'm quoting this: smaller lots and higher density single-family lots are appropriate in this neighborhood, given its proximity to Highway 29, North Main Street corridor, and downtown Greer. In accordance with the guidelines set forth in the comprehensive plan, and after a detailed study of the area, staff recommends approval. So that's, obviously that's from the staff, and they are the ones that are trained, in zoning. They understand all the rules. They understand the comprehensive plan. So I think that's just worth noting. And then the last thing I'm going to say, and I'll wrap up here, is the design review district. In my opinion, for my specific case, I truly believe this helps the neighborhood. A DRD, when I just set all my requirements, it's going to hold me accountable. I have to follow these guidelines. If it was R7.5, R12, anything else, there is no, other than the lot size, there's no requirement. This holds me to the letter of the law as far as what I'm going to put in my letter of intent. And we talked a little bit about a architectural control review. There is none. There's no HOA. There's no ARC here. But this, in effect, does that. It creates accountability for me as the builder, for both architecture, the lot spacing as I've laid out.
30 seconds.
Okay, my last point is, I know that there will be more general discussions about DRD, and I think that's appropriate and well-deserved. All I ask is that for my project, you look specifically at what my project is and how that applies to the DRD zoning.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Ms. Duncan, we've got a motion in a second.
Yes, sir.
Floor is open for discussion.
Ms. Connie, what were the specific reasons that the commission recommended denial? Do you, right off the top of your head, know those?
Sure. So the Planning Commission didn't necessarily give reasons before they voted, but based on the discussion, and I will say that 2 or 3 of them were more vocal. Some didn't really speak in favor or ask any questions, so I'm not sure exactly what their reasoning for their vote was. However, compatibility with the neighborhood was one comment. Concerns specifically with the front lot that is smaller than the other 2, kind of in the rear and the side. And then the fact that they recognized there were varying lot sizes in the neighborhood, but that this was one of the few larger that were left, and they had concerns with splitting that up. So those were the main concerns that we heard overall.
So what we're talking about is the developer's ability to go from what he has could be 3 lots, and he's asking for 4. Is that correct?
In essence, yes. I believe with the current square footage, you could lay out 3.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think, what's interesting is that if he goes with the 3 lots, it's zoned R12, and there are no covenants and restrictions, he could essentially build whatever he wanted to up to city standards at that point. Is that correct?
That is correct. The R12 zoning has setbacks and minimum lot size, but it does not have any architectural standards, if that's what you're referring to.
I am, and then also the finishes as well. I mean, we have, with DRD, we have absolute control based on the scope of the project that he's defined. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when he says he's going to build the roof line and the elevations like this, and he's going to put the materials in place, and the porches will look like this, this is the product that we're going to get. Is that correct?
It is. Any amendment would have to go through staff for minor or through Planning Commission and Council for a major change.
And how is this project different, in your opinion, from the project we just approved on East Avenue and that Planning Commission voted for unanimously?
I mean, I think every case you take on a case-by-case basis. You look at surrounding zoning, you look at surrounding uses, you look at what the comprehensive plan says. Staff recommended approval of both.
You also look at neighborhoods.
Yes, I mean, Planning Commission certainly can.
So you're saying if approved as presented right now, he would be entitled, and the plan is to have 4 houses there when he's done?
Yes, sir, the site plan
That
shows
is the DRD.
4
intent.
homes,
Right.
4 lots. One is existing, so not 4 new, 3 new and 1 existing.
Yes.
Oh, let me go back to the site plan. Here.
So leave that up for just a moment. Because, one of the things that that I find myself in a bit of a quandary about is this obviously is within 2 blocks of my home, and I want to be able to separate what is in the best interest of the community from any personal feelings that I might have in this regard in regards to a decision here. I've spent a good bit of time looking at our ordinance in regards to the subdivision of the lot and to the other surrounding issues. And one of the things that I find kind of interesting, but also a bit perplexing, is that this came to us originally as a rezoning, which I think was appropriate. The ask for a rezoning of 7.5 for this particular property. And it did inherently come with some issues and problems. And I think that I know why the recommendation was to move to a DRD. But as I begin to think about this a little bit more, one of the things that came up that I've not satisfied myself with, council, is that in our own guidelines, particularly in regards to Section 6, which define conforming and non-conforming uses. If you go back just a little bit from that section, there is a description in our ordinance about accessory buildings and uses. Now, if you have the Rock House, the 301 Miller Street house there, if we, without dividing these lots up, if we wanted to build a freestanding garage or a carport or a workshop or a mother-in-law suite, we wouldn't be able to do it because it says under our own guidelines that any accessory building has to be located to the rear of the property, provided that the setbacks are no less than 5 feet on any lot line and occupy more than 20% of the rear yard. So we couldn't go on that piece of property and build a freestanding garage. If we said, well, maybe a storage shed. If we look at 613.1, it addresses the purpose and intent, and it says the purpose of the storage ordinance is to regulate the use of storage containers and buildings on property within the city of Greer. The ordinance will also ensure the proper development and use inside of the city of Greer by preserving and protecting the visual quality and character of the neighborhood. So we can't build a storage shed on that piece of property. So if we can't build a garage, we can't build a storage shed, then maybe we'll want to put our swimming pool over there or our tennis court. But if we look at section 613, it defines accessory uses as the use of a building and or portion thereof of customarily incidental to the principal use of the land or building and located on the same lot with the principal use. For the purpose of this ordinance, defines accessory uses as swimming pools, game courts, satellite dishes, solar panels, windmills, and other similar devices. So if we can't build a garage on that piece of property, and we can't build a storage building on that piece of property, and we can't build a pool on that piece of property without subdividing that lot, why in the world would we be willing to allow a home to be built on that lot? Now, I realize that there are exceptions. There are exceptions to every rule, but the problem with exceptions is that an exception typically creates a potential precedent. And I think that that's where we are now, because to the point that Mr. Martin brought up earlier, I have real concerns about the use of the DRD in this particular instance. DRD, the focus of DRD, as I understand it, should be to enhance a community's character or to create some sort of specific identity of its own. And it was my understanding that the process was intended to promote quality architectural design. We've seen that tonight. I'm not going to argue that. Site design. I'm not going to argue that. We've seen a good site design tonight. Landscape development. I'm not going to argue that tonight. But what I am going to argue is that the DRD also is designed to give oversight to stormwater control, ingress and egress, sidewalks, lighting, open space, signage, screening, and buffers, and all other concerns. So it is not typical that we would see an application for a DRD on a less than a 1 acre lot. And to that point, plan development standards and our regulations in section 615 define the PD and the DRD as one heading. And under that heading, it says the minimum site size for any planned development has to be a minimum of 1 acre. So I'm not sure that we're applying the DRD in the right use here. While we're providing greater flexibility in the DRD, in the planning and design, than a matter of rights zoning issue, which we've transferred from. We have gone from a matter of rights zoning procedure to this DRD, which I don't think was ever intended to be used to circumvent the intent or the purpose of our zoning regulations, which I think this does, or to result in an action that is inconsistent with our planning efforts, which I think this does. In fact, in section 616 of our own ordinance, it says for site plan reviews for the PD and the DRD, this section lists criteria by which the PD, which is a plan development, or a DRD, which is the design review district, are reviewed. Permitted uses must be in accordance with the zoning district's requirements. So it's my opinion that we have already violated the spirit of that law. And particularly if you look at the following definition. 616.1 says the application of a site plan review is that the spirit of the zoning district shall not be violated. And I think 7.5 violates that very piece of our own ordinance. It also says that the proposed development will harmonize with existing development. There has been an intent to do that. That the proposed development will be a desirable addition to the pattern of the neighborhood. I do not think it does that. That the visual appearance of the development will harmonize with the existing development. That's a matter of opinion. The DRD is by voluntary submission and is typically in exchange for some flexibility because a project has something unique or superior about it, but doesn't necessarily need the extra density. And that's exactly what we are considering here, is the extra density. I just have serious reservations about opening this door. To Mr. Martin's point and to my observations, in communities that are very quickly growing across the state, this is the gateway to tearing down existing houses and building new houses on the lots. This is the gateway to begin to subdivide single lots using the DRD, which could lead to the default position of the DRD. And under those regulations that we have set out ourselves, I think that we are moving in a direction that borders to be in direct conflict with our zoning ordinance. And that is what convinces me, not the design. I have no opposition to the building design. I'd love to have any one of those houses. It's not the opposition to the planning effort that's gone into this. The problem is that this was submitted to the Planning Commission as a zoning request, which was denied once and has come back in a dressed up package and has been denied again and comes before us. I can't, and I can't support it for those reasons. I had somebody last week ask me, said, you know, do you feel like you're too close to make an objectionable decision on this item before you? And we talked about it a little bit, and they live in an area of this city that if I told you what the subdivision was, and probably even the street was, you would know immediately. And I proposed this hypothetical question to them that I'll propose to our council this evening. And let's just say that this subdivision has R20 lots, half-acre lots, 22,000 square feet, it's R20. And let's just hypothetically say that a home in that neighborhood burns to the ground and that the owner decides to sell the lot rather than rebuild the home. And a neighbor buys that piece of property. And the neighbor comes to our planning commission and suggests that they would like to get R10 zoning for their property and the property next door. That their intent is to build a house in their side yard and then two more on the other lot. And I asked this person, would you be amenable to that in your community? And guess what their answer was? Absolutely not. And I think we're at that point. I think this is the same thing. We're going from one house to four with a lot that is 8,000 square feet. And I believe it is in direct contradiction to our own planning and zoning efforts. And for that reason, I'm going to vote no this evening. Others? Comments? Questions?
The only other thing I'd like to say is, again, I just want to put this in perspective. We're talking about, we have opened Pandora's box. We already voted on something earlier tonight that was DRD. And I think that's what the purpose of DRD is. It allows you to look at specific lots and opportunities and different things within the city to make decisions like these. And I think the project that he's bringing us is incredible and very consistent with the area, and I can understand why staff approved it. Now, I'm not sure about the piece about the 1 acre. You know, do we have any more information about that?
Plan development, PD, requires 1 acre. DRD doesn't have a minimum lot size.
They are listed under the same heading, though.
I understand. That's staff's interpretation of the ordinance, so, and how we've used it over the last some odd years, so.
But again, I'd make the point that he's gonna have the ability to have a lot on each side of this house if we go with the R12. And he doesn't have the restrictions that we're giving him with DRD. And he's presented a great project and he's got it set back. And if you want to talk about consistency, I mean, the lot across the street's 8,000 square feet and the one next door is 6,000. And I get that the zoning laws, and I understand that we've had those in place, you know, since, I don't know, I heard 77 or 78 or whatever the year was that was referenced. I get that. But I think the reason we have DRD is to let us look at cases like this and to make these decisions. And I think that's why it's here. I think that's what we did with East. We just did it tonight. And our planning commission voted 7-0 to support it. And I know that they look at it a case-by-case basis, and they disagreed with this one. I get that.
I think that's the whole idea is a case-by-case basis. We just approved a DRD that's, in all intents and purposes, next door to Mr. Bettis on a piece of property. I think every case is individual. When you look at the surrounding homes and the surrounding zoning on those homes, I think you have to be at least consistent with that. There is more than enough room to do either 2 10,000 or possibly even 2 12,000 homes on this lot, on this singular lot here. I have no problem with that. I have no issue with that. You even brought up the point that he wouldn't have had to come before either one of these groups to do that. And I think that's what we have seen in the past. I mean, are there exceptions? Absolutely there are exceptions. You look at that. There is a home within walking distance of my house that's on an unplatted piece of property. They built the home in the backyard apparently for their children or for their parents or something. Yeah, there's exceptions all through there, but every time we add an exception to a decision like this, we run the risk of opening the door. There is a tremendous amount of difference between a DRD in an area like the Victor Mill than in the area that is defined as a historic downtown residential neighborhood.
I agree. I think that's why, the first time he came to planning commission, he asked for 7.5. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And so that's why we went back to the DRD, because it is a historical district, and I do believe that he's trying to protect it by setting architectural standards, which in my opinion raise the bar to a really high level for that area. I think what he's presented is very much consistent with the area.
But it doesn't change the fact that one of the lots is a 7.5. What we got tonight was a very dressed up edition of what he presented the first time.
I think with the 7.5, he could have had 5 lots. Is that correct? Is that not right?
Well, we'll take him at his word. We discussed this.
I think he could have gotten 5 lots with a 7.5, and with 7.5, there's no controls. I think that's the difference here. With 7.5, he could have gotten 5 lots if it would have been approved, and he could have built anything he wanted to.
If he would have taken this house down, if he wants to take that house down, he can do 3 12,000 square foot lots on there. And he doesn't even have to come back before us. From a design standpoint, removing that rock house makes more sense than anything.
I think the people in the neighborhood would think that I heard tonight they want it to be saved, and I think what the plan that he showed is a drastic improvement from where it is today. I think it looks great. So I think here's where we are. I just think it's a difference of opinion on this, and so I think we can agree that DRD is based on the way we vote is subjective, and I believe we might have to agree to disagree tonight.
Isn't the first and won't be the last.
No, sir.
Other comments, questions, discussion?
If one of the houses was taken out, like the one over there on the left, look at my hands, over there on the left, the lone lot, and then presented with the 3 lots, that would still give him the 2 houses. But the drawings and proposed houses, they're lovely. When you think about a historic, that type of district, then it would, then from the appearance of the drawings that we saw, then they would fit in. And I think probably eliminating that possibly one house on the, with the long rectangular lot and building the 2. That could go without fiberglass, is that not correct? They have those, that would fit in, right?
So if you kept the long rectangular lot?
The rectangular long lot, not the back.
Yes, the second one. So,
And then the other lot,
it doesn't
all
have
3 lots would go
12,000 square
straight
feet, but the other lot would have to be cut a little bit
Lots would go
smaller.
straight back.
Yes,
That would
ma'am.
make them all longer, more space,
Is this a,
more open.
yes, so they could potentially take some off this lot to make this one 12,000 square feet, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah,
Without coming to the board, yes.
Other?
I do want to say one more thing while I'm doing a bunch of talking. I just wanted to recognize all the voices that were heard tonight. I thank you all for showing up, and I got all your emails and all your comments and everything, and see some good friends standing here tonight and some family sitting right over here. And it's tough sometimes to go against your friends and your family, but just know that when we vote, we pick winners and losers every time, and we just have to go by the merits of the project and to vote what we think is best. And so please don't take this personally the way I'm voting tonight, and I just wanted to recognize all of you and just let you know you were definitely heard. And I thank you for being here.
I was just sitting here thinking, in 5 years on the planning commission, now a year and a half after joining you all in this body, this is the first time I've seen, and I understand that DRD, like, they're all different, that's kind of the point. But this is very much different than any other DRD request that I've seen. You know, to your point, we did just approve one tonight, right? I think the difference that I see here is the lot size and is the neighborhood. If there's a more historic residential neighborhood in our community, I don't know where it is. And so, as has been rightly pointed out, there's a lot of variation in that area of lot sizes and design, et cetera, but it was made R12 for a reason. And so, that's what I keep coming back to. I've driven by the lot probably a dozen times since it first came to planning commission in its first form, just knowing that we're probably going to get to this point in some form or another. And I just know in a historic neighborhood like that, you can't walk back something like that. And so it's my opinion that this does go out of character somewhat, just because of the density on this particular site. As has been said, I'll echo, I love the homes, they're beautiful. Appreciate the opportunity to speak directly with Mr. Stagberg himself, believe his intentions are pure and good. That's just what gives me pause using DRD in this situation, this request.
I'll echo that. Mr. Stegberg and I had a very cordial conversation just this past weekend. This has never been about quality of work, quality of this design, or any indication of his work. I believe very firmly in that. I believe he's also very firmly committed to this. It has always been about the quantity of homes, and I think that is still the issue here. It was turned down on a rezoning request, and it has been turned down now in a very similar request. Council, other concerns, questions, comments?
I'd just like to say that I like the seriousness that this council takes when we have something like this that comes before us. And I'd also like to say to the public too, that I'm glad to see you guys come out too. And to make sure this is not your last time that you come out. You're welcome to come back next week and the week after. But we take what we do seriously, you know, and we take into account, you know, that people do put sweat and equity into their properties, you know, and that city council is the form of government that's closest to the people, you know, and we take what we do seriously. I know people say a lot of times that things are already decided, and I promise you not with this council, because you can see, normally I'm in the middle of that going back and forth. I just enjoyed seeing them tonight. But we do take seriously what we do.
Jay's not here. Council.
One other thing, Mayor, because this came, they turned it down, what is it, does it have to supermajority?
No, that's to make sure we're all of clear minds and intent. This ordinance comes to us, 34-2021 comes to us with a recommendation from staff for the DRD. The Planning Commission, at their public hearing on the 16th, recommended denial. So a vote of yes is to affirm the DRD, a vote of no is denial. We clear?
Yeah, I would probably just like to see the fourth house back there removed and the lots lower. But the houses and the craftsmanship that you presented, I think they look lovely. And there are a lot of different homes as you ride down in there. You know, I believe there's a couple and several new ones, unless they've just been completely restored from where they were down in that area. But I think that the craftsmanship that he's displayed here to us, the style of homes and all, would really enhance it. But I would prefer to see the 3 lots as opposed to the 4, giving you more yard space in the back or to the side.
Mayor, I just want to say I appreciate your presentation. That's as good as I've ever seen. The research you did. and that puts it on an intellectual level. Mine's more emotional. I have a lot of ties to this community and the people who have lived there and are living there. But this house to me is kind of iconic. I knew the people who built it and lived there. It is historic. The people who live there were part of Greer's history, and I hear the residents in that area loud and clear that this represents a lot of what is the best of Greer, and to change that too much kind of tinkers with the DNA. So, like I say, my decision is more emotional, but I appreciate you putting it on a factual level.
Others? We clear mind on the vote? Ms.
Say it
Duncan?
again.
It comes to us with a recommendation from staff to move to ordinance number 34-2021 is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of properties owned by Stagberg Builders Incorporated located at 301 North Miller Street and 300 West Arlington Avenue from R12 to DRD. That recommendation is of staff. The Planning Commission met on August 16th and recommended denial. Comes to us with a denial from commission. But the ordinance is from staff. So to affirm moving from R12 to a DRD is a vote of yes. To deny is a vote of no. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
No.
Mr. Hopper,
No.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
No.
Miss Albert, Mayor Danner.
No. Council, let's move to the first reading of ordinance number 42-2021. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of properties owned by J. Munez and Thomas Inman located at 415 King Street and Hampton Road from RM1 to DRD. Ms. Cotty, information in that regard?
Sure, Mayor, thank you. This is a rezoning
I tell you what, Ms.
request.
Cotty, it looks like we've got some movement. Let's just hold up just a
Sure.
minute and we'll let people make their way out if they wish to.
Absolutely.
All right, ma'am, you may move forward.
Sure, thank you. This is a rezoning request for two parcels. It is sandwiched between three roadways, Hampton Road, King Street, and Kirby Street. This is an aerial of the two properties. This is a current zoning map. The kind of lighter tan that you see, or brownish taupe, is RM1 residential multifamily. The red is C2. The fuchsia colors are C3, and there is also some blue S1. This is the comprehensive plan. This is located in a traditional neighborhood right on the border of suburban commercial. And then this is a current street view of the site. The statement of intent proposes for up to 36 single-family attached units or townhomes. They do maintain a 25-foot perimeter around the property lines, 20 feet along interior streets. As you'll see from the site plan, these are proposed to be rear-loaded townhomes. For building materials, they're proposing hardy board or vinyl siding. We did require that minimum of 0.46 millimeters of vinyl. That is a higher quality vinyl siding. And then brick or stone with a combination of two materials. I'm going to switch to the site plan because I think it's a little easier to see on this one. But they are proposing exterior sidewalks, which is typically required. And they are proposing an access on a currently undeveloped city alleyway. They would be improving the alley on the portion that you see. And then the HOA would be responsible for the maintenance of that alley. And the city would just allow for encroachment upon that alleyway. So again, this is the site plan as it's shown. There are 6 separate buildings, again with up to 6 units each for a total of up to 36 townhome units. And I believe That's really it. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing for this on August 16th, and they did recommend approval. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
By show of hand, is the owner of the property representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Okay, if you'll be available for questions then. For the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive 42-2021.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion.
Are these gonna be rental or for sale?
I may want to have the applicant
Let's
address that.
defer to someone that would speak on behalf of the project.
My name's Alex Zunt. I'm the engineer for the project with Zunt Engineering, 301 North Main Street in Greenville. Some of these units are going to be for sale, some could be used for rental, but they're going to be subdivided separately. So,
So the ones that are gonna be, for rent, you're gonna have, who's gonna be in charge of those? Or is each one gonna have its own lot or?
each one's going to have its own lot. Each unit's going to be subdivided like a typical townhouse development. And it'll be the same owner. I think Tom and Jay might keep it or may sell them off individually as they need to.
So it's gonna be like a mixture?
Yes. Yes.
But now, the ones that for rent, if you start to have problems out of those units, are you gonna have somebody on site that?
Yes.
So with the alley and the setbacks, is there an HOA or these are individual lots? This is
No,
nothing-
there's going to be an HOA overseeing the entire development.
Okay, that's for clarity, yeah.
And always, since stormwater is always a question at every development, we are proposing to go in underground storage for this to maintain the density.
Now, you said the sidewalks are gonna be where?
Along the exterior of the parcel, along Kirby, Hampton, and King Street. So it's a 5-foot sidewalk that circumvents the property, allow public access around the property. We're not going to have any internal ones, just since the roads are going to be minor access.
And so the traffic, now when the traffic comes out of those townhomes, is it gonna come out on Kirby?
It comes out onto Kirby, correct. There are 2 access points along King, but they're emergency access only. They're going to be gated and, apologize. They're going to be gated and they're going to have the reinforced matting. We spoke with fire on that.
Yeah, so that there's not gonna be any access on Hampton?
Correct.
I'm sorry, you said they're coming off on King Street?
Kirby. The 2
Kirby.
access points that are on King are for emergency access only. Those are going to be grassed. They're going to be reinforced grass pavers, and they're going to be gated. Probably the typical chain gating that the fire department will have within a Knox box to access.
Now, the way it's gonna be set back, is there any opportunity for parking to be on Hampton?
No. Well, you could put parking spaces there, but it's going to be inside someone's house. So I don't know how well that's going to go.
Yeah, cause that's a busy one anyway, and to add any
No.
extra any parking on that would just be disaster.
No, it's best to do screening along that back there to protect that road. We didn't want to come off of that because you're going to be too close to the intersections at that point. You might cause a traffic accident. The best was to use that unimproved alley and you have better sight triangles and sight vision at that point.
It's better to bring it out on Kirby, because there's not much traffic on Kirby though.
Correct.
Have you got a Speedway Drive and a Fountain Inn Drive in this project?
Not
You have
tonight.
in your statement of intent, you do. I just wondered where they were.
I think I might have.
Sounds like cutting paste, Mike.
I think I forgot to hit delete on some things or whatnot. We were thinking, how quick can we get through this site on that bend?
So these private drives will have to be named, but
Yes.
we don't have approved names from the
I might
county.
suggest Speedway and Fountain Inn.
Speedway and Fountain Inn Drive.
I think Speedway's already taken up. No, it's Cragway, I think, is already taken up.
Not sure about that Fountain Inn one, but I don't think that would go with the city of Greer.
Yeah, we'd appreciate it. Others, questions, comments?
Tell us a little more about the surrounding area again and why staff approved it. Can you
Yeah,
just speak to that
absolutely.
quickly?
So again, this area, for a little bit of context, and I messed it up, Jim. Okay, thanks, sorry. So as you see this pink right here, over to this side, is the Super Walmart. And then further up here is Wade Hampton. So just based on the proximity and given all of the commercial nature and RM1 residential multifamily that is in the neighborhood, staff felt that it was appropriate. Again, it is designated as a traditional neighborhood, and it does border that suburban commercial. Traditional neighborhood in the comprehensive plan calls for a variety of different housing types. And I mean, townhomes or duplexes or multifamily wouldn't necessarily be appropriate in all, but I think given the proximity to Wade Hampton and that commercial area, that we thought that this density was appropriate.
Where's that C2, is that Walmart's or?
No, I'm not certain exactly what it's.
I believe that's the back of that old bio.
Is that where
I think it's the-
Radiator shop used to be?
Yeah, it's
No,
I-
this is up on Hampton Road.
so this is Hampton Road. This is that. Yeah, the C2 that's above it is there's like a car lot and different uses that are along there. Yeah, it's like the back way into the Walmart.
Yeah, I think that's where that, you used to tow cars there. Yeah. That's what that is, or do still do tow cars. Others, questions, comments? Any additional discussion?
Why are we building so many townhomes?
I'm not certain I'd be the one to answer that.
On that side of town is welcome. It's called housing. And I promise you, as long as it's done in good taste, they're welcome that.
I will say that it does. Over the last kind of 2 to 5 years, this board and planning commission have seen a lot more townhomes. But I will say overall, the mix of housing types, we did kind of this study for the comprehensive plan, and it is still very much predominantly single family detached. It was the vast majority. I think it was almost in the 90% range. So again, while we have seen a lot of it lately, I think still the overall balance throughout the whole city, you still have a big majority of single family. I think maybe just there wasn't this housing type before, and so it's filling a gap that wasn't there. But I am not a real estate expert, just kind of commenting on the trends that we've seen and based on the comprehensive plan data.
I did hear, I think somebody made a statement that it's, townhomes were coming to, help the climate, too. That was one of the things. Y'all knew that, didn't you?
They knew it.
I did hear that, because it doesn't take up so much space and stuff, and so, building 10, 15 houses.
It also allows younger people to move in, get their own place right off the bat, start off, instead of sitting in apartments and renting.
One more question. Why did they decide to go, I think you already said this, I just wanted to, sorry to backtrack if you did. Again, why are they going from multifamily to DRD? Like what was the?
So our current zoning ordinance in residential multifamily and really all zoning districts, the minimum lot width is 30 feet. So there really is not a zoning district that allows for the traditional townhome. Most townhome lots are in the 20 to 22 to 24 range. So the vast majority of townhome projects that you guys have seen over the last few years have used DRD. This is something we are definitely planning to address in the upcoming UDO. But unless Our property is over 2 acres, which it can't qualify for group residential, so that's kind of an issue too. So they just didn't really have a lot of options if they wanted this housing type. And they may have something to add too, but that's just what staff recommended based on what they wanted to do.
We're not changing the density on the site either. I believe we're sticking with the similar density that multifamily allows for. On that side, we're not really increasing it, using as much of the site as possible, but it's just the minimum lot width that was the major issue.
Last call, council. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. First reading of ordinance number 43-2021. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of certain properties owned by Ice Station Greer LLC located at 211 School Street from S1 to C1 in the Central Business District. Ms. Cotty?
Sure, this is a rezoning request. This business is currently in use. I'm sure many of you have driven by it and remember when it opened. So it's currently being used as an ice rink, a practice and tournament rink for a club hockey team. And they are requesting to rezone from S1 to C1. Here's an aerial of the property. Again, it's located on School Street, also adjacent to the railroad right-of-way. Here is the current zoning map. You'll see the adjacent to light pink is C1 Central Business District. And then the other property is residential multifamily and R12. And so again, that kind of tannish color is the railroad right-of-way that you're seeing as well. It is located in the downtown living, which is kind of just the downtown district corresponding in the comprehensive plan. And then this is a current street view of the site and the building. Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on August 16th, and they do recommend approval. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
For the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So second.
Motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. By show of hand, is the owner of the property or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? No one indicated so. Floor is open for discussion.
What's the purpose and advantage of going from S to C?
Sure. So initially, the ice rink approached staff and wanted to expand the building, but S1 Services District has a front setback of 45 feet, and that was difficult to meet.
It's still gonna be the ice rink.
Yes, ma'am.
What will the setbacks be in
So C1 has 0 lot lines, although city ordinance does require 5 feet for stormwater.
Do you know what specifically they're wanting to do?
I don't. I know they were still kind of in discussions, but part of the reason was right around here they wanted to expand, and this frontage is already non-conforming for the 45 feet, and this as well. They have to have 45 feet from this, and so they were not able to do an expansion along this area right here.
What did they put up to?
So they actually just bought, the owner of the ice rink actually owns, I believe, these 2 properties as well. And I believe they're vacant. And this one may be a house, but it is zoned C1. So staff, I mean, the uses that are allowed in C1, if this were to ever cease to be an ice rink, staff thinks the uses in C1 are more appropriate for this area and doesn't have major concerns with the setback differences, just given the road frontage on most of the sides. So staff didn't have concerns with the request.
Council, questions? Comments? Discussion?
I'll just say, I don't know if anybody else has been inside their existing facility, but it's pretty impressive what they've done. It's a top-notch facility so far, so I would be very optimistic about what they have planned.
Others? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, let's move to the first reading of ordinance number 44-2021. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of a certain property owned by Max Geezy located on Brushy Creek Road from RM2, which is residential multifamily, to DRD. Ms. Cotty, information in that regard, please.
Sure. So this is another rezoning request for DRD for a townhome-like product, similar to some that we've seen tonight. So this is one property located along Brushy Creek Road. Here's the aerial of the site. This is the current zoning map. That kind of light, that brownish color is RM2, residential multifamily. Red is C2. Blue is industrial, and then the tan that is to the south is R12, single-family residential. It is located within manufacturing and logistics, bordering suburban neighborhood in the comprehensive plan. This is a current street view of the site. For their statement of intent, they are proposing up to 20 single-family attached units. They do have the appearance of townhome, although I believe they're for rent product. The two-story structures will have a 2-bedroom and 2-bath. Again, they're around 1,100 square feet each. They would have to maintain a 30-foot setback along Brushy Creek Road, and then a 15-foot side and rear. You'll see on the site plan there is an extensive easement located along the rear as well. So they have pretty typical building material standards, and then for the infrastructure, the common areas and internal drive would all be private and maintained by the development. So here is the current site plan. They do have exterior sidewalks along Brushy Creek Road, and they do have one entrance proposed. The location of that is to have offset driveways for the existing drives that are already along Brushy Creek Road. They're proposing for up to 5 buildings with 4 units apiece, so technically it's a quadplex. Again, although they will have the appearance of townhomes, and then this is a private drive with campus-style parking. And then there is that large transmission or Duke easement that is located along the rear. Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on August 16th, and they did recommend approval of the project. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Do you know if they recommended anything be done about Brushy Creek Road? I know at the other townhomes up the road, they did a turn lane or.
Yeah, so they,
It's gotten terrible in Washington.
I don't believe that they met the trip generation to require
Just a smaller.
a study. But they will have to bring the road up to standards if the condition is lacking.
For
So
the
if
purpose of further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive.
Oh, sorry.
Motion second, floor is open for further discussion.
I guess my other concern would be, why are these going to be rental units as opposed to sold?
I would defer to the applicant for that question.
By show of hand, is the owner of the property or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Does either one of you care to address that question? If you'll come to the podium, please.
Hi, my name is Kyle Sikla, and to answer your question is this will be a long-term hold just to provide housing that's not apartment. A lot of people in our experience, have wanted kind of more of a private, more of a single-family feel. And in our current rental units, they've been moving out of apartments into what we provide here.
So y'all will be responsible for the upkeep and,
Yes, ma'am.
maintenance of the units and the yards and all that.
Correct.
I just asked that because I live right behind it.
Okay. Yeah, we plan on keeping them supreme, pristine condition.
Keep the grass cut in the backyard.
It's better than a service station, I would say.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Others?
I'm sorry, where did you say that road is exiting? Is that on Brushy Creek? Now, how are they gonna do that?
Yes,
with,
sir.
Did you say it was gated? We did, or just the private road?
Oh, no, it's not gated. It's just gonna be a private drive that's not maintained by the city. So this internal drive aisle with the campus-style parking, this will all be private.
Now, will that property have to have a detention pond or anything? I know when they built the medical building up there, there was a terrible problem with runoff and drainage and everything.
I would probably defer to the applicant and engineer as well. However, this did go to PAC and did receive comments from our stormwater engineer, Robert Rue. So yes, certainly retention and stormwater management would be part of the civil plans. Absolutely. I don't know the exact plans. It looks like they're maybe doing it underground, but.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about GD.
Please.
I'm Craig Winall with Site Design. We're the civil engineers, 225 Rocky Creek in Greenville. The shaded area is the underground detention, and as Ashley said, what the issue is there's a Duke Power transmission line easement at the back, and you can't do anything in their transmission line easement. So we've had to shove everything up, and in doing that, there's no room for a pond. But the rule is you've got to detain, for the state rules. So we're doing it with an underground detention system. Is what we're doing.
Thank you. Others? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, let's move to item 6, first reading of ordinance number 45-2021. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of a certain property owned by Cat Properties LLC located at 200 West Poinsett Street from C2 to C1. Ms. Cotty?
Thank you. This is a rezoning request for one parcel. It is at the corner of West Poinsett and North Miller Street. This is a current aerial view of the property. It's currently undeveloped, vacant. This is a current zoning map. The pink to the east and the immediate west are C1, Central Business District. The tan behind it is R12, single family. Across the street is RM1, residential multifamily. And then for the comprehensive plan, it is located in a traditional neighborhood and does border the downtown living district. This is a current street view of the site. And Planning Commission did hold a public hearing again on August 16th and recommended approval. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
For the purpose of discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive ordinance number 45-2021. And a second?
Second.
Floor is open for discussion. By show of hand, is the owner of the property or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Thank you, sir. If you'll be available for question. Floor is open for discussion. Comments?
I always thought that property was in a black hole. Should have known you could figure it out.
Others? Questions? Comments? Discussion? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin, Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, let's move to the first reading of ordinance number 46-2021. This is an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a development agreement by and between the City of Greer, South Carolina, and Four Star USA Real Estate Group. Mr. Merriman, floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the first reading of a development agreement, as you mentioned, in connection with a proposed annexation, an annexation you've already had one reading on, of property off of Snow Road, another multifamily townhome project. This development agreement outlines a agreement between the city and Four Star for a payment of $1,000 per unit to be used for capital improvement needs in areas south of Interstate 85 to offset some of the impacts of annexation.
For the purpose of discussion, first reading of ordinance number 46-2021. Do I hear a motion to receive?
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. Floor is open for discussion.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I really appreciate where we're going with this, especially since I believe, in fact, I know, I have all of south of 85. There's a couple of developments right around this particular area that I represent, and so growth is a good thing, development's a good thing. I think we all are of that mind, but I think this helps mitigate some of that impact to our current residents while still allowing for some of that. So I appreciate your work on this, bringing it to us.
Others? Comments? Discussion? Questions? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, the final item before us this evening is the first and final reading of Resolution 13-2021. This is a resolution designating an authorized representative and contact person for the purposes of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Action is required. Mr. Merriman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. This is very simply as council and the governing body of the City of Greer, acknowledging or at least designating me as the representative and contact person to receive and or deal with any funds that come from the federal government through the state for the American Rescue Plan Act.
Action is required. I'll entertain a motion to receive. Any questions of Mr. Merriman in that regard? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Mayor Danner?
Yes. Council, we have one item in executive session this evening. I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn into executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss a contractual matter pertaining to Net Zero Farms as allowed by state statute, section 30-470A2.
Comes as a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert? Mayor Danner?
Yes. In executive session, we have considered one contractual matter in accordance to State Statute 34-70A2. We've taken no action in that regard. I'll entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Bettis?
Yes.
Ms. Albert?
Yes.
Mayor Danner?
Yes. Stand adjourned.